about 30 minutes into the 2-hour NBC broadcast, there was a what do you call it? What do you call a part of a parade? Kirby, you got a word for that?
I'm not sure. Just
all right. Well, anyway, on comes transvestites and transgendered people. I don't know if you saw this or not, but we got a lot of calls on this. What happened was there is a Broadway musical called Kinky Boots.
Yep.
And so it's about transvestites. And is in the Macy's Day Parade, they include obviously bands from around the country and floats and such, but they also often include Broadway shows. And so here you're watching the Macy's parade with your children, and all of a sudden they've got cameras on men dressed up like women in high-heel boots. And we got a lot of, like I said, a lot of response from that. But that was kind of where we are in America. It's kind of a snapshot of where we are in America, the idea that during the family event like the Macy's Day Parade, you could have cross-dressers being celebrated as part of, right behind the band from Peoria. Here come the guys in garter belts. I mean, this is where we are in much of America. We're talking about the war on Christmas, folks, because even some Christians say, it doesn't matter, doesn't exist. If it does, it pales in comparison to what's happening to other believers who are really being persecuted around the world. And as we've said here, Ray and I and Kirby were talking about that. That's mixing arguments, Kirby. Because yes, there's there's physical persecution of Christians around the world, but why would you say just because that is happening that we shouldn't care about the fact that Christianity itself in America, the Judeo-Christian value system in particular, is under siege, and included in that is every year during Christmas season the secular progressives, the secular liberals, the secular humanists, whatever you want to call them, they want to try to eradicate the word Christmas from the popular culture because it reminds people about the Judeo-Christian heritage of our country and about the person of Jesus Christ. That is a real war that is really going on. It just happens to be during the Christmas season that we see it maybe more so than we do throughout the year.
Sure. And in your article you say, just ask the Christian bakery owners in Washington State or the Christian florist in Colorado or the Christian photographer in New Mexico. And I could add in a whole lot of others, Christian camp in New Jersey. And and you just realize that those are battles that are taking place almost every day. I used to say to Kelly Shackelford that when he would come in on Friday for our weekend edition, that we always like to do religious liberty. And at first I thought, okay, do we have enough to cover religious liberty topics once a week? And very quickly I came to the conclusion that it's getting so bad we could almost do a daily religious liberty challenge. And this, to turn a blind eye to that and to say, this Christmas thing's not a big deal, is like the people that are in New Mexico saying, well, I don't know, maybe a Christian photographer should actually photograph a commitment ceremony with two lesbians, or maybe a bakery in Washington or Oregon or other places where this has happened should bake a cake for homosexuals, and on and on and on. We are in the midst of a battle, and I know you're trying to, and I think all of us are trying to wake up the church to recognize that we're in a war, and we're going to lose the war if we don't even realize there's a battle taking place.
Yeah, and Ray, there are consequences. We have our country was founded on Christian principles, and the Christian up until the last few decades, the Christian moral value system permeated our culture. Even people who weren't Christians subscribed to the Christian definition of right and wrong, good and evil, moral and immoral. That's all changed in the last 30 years. There's been an open rebellion against that. And what we're saying is you don't live in a vacuum. If a culture rejects God's worldview, the Bible's worldview, then it will adopt something else, which won't be friendly.
Well, yeah, there's so many good points that have been made already. And Kirby, your answer earlier was, I think, a brilliant answer to both of the objections that I pointed out people are making. And Tim, you said earlier, there's a sense in which not only is the war going on, but we're actually making a lot of progress. There are
Yes, we are.
to report. I'm right now. I'm on the AFA website, afa.net. And the very first thing is this naughty or nice list,
Right.
AFA's 2013 listing of top retailers and how they recognize Christmas, and they categorize them by blue or green or yellow or red. And I'm just happy to say, I would encourage all of our listeners to come to the website and check out this naughty or nice list. But Tim, the interesting thing to me is there are far more companies listed
Yes.
in the green category than in the red category. I mean, it's some big companies here.
Yeah,
So-
go there to our website. It's obviously free information, afa.net, and we do have a naughty or nice list. And what that is we track corporations and the retailers primarily who they make their money during the Christmas gift buying season, and we let you know which one of these, how many of these companies recognize Christmas in their stores, and that's just, and then people can decide what they want to do or not with the information. But what we're saying is there are more and more companies now
Yes,
that we've been in contact with them. We've reasoned with them. We've said, hey, listen, you make your money because people buy Christmas gifts. Why not say the word?
Well,
so-
sometimes people would listen to us talk and they go, "Well, you bunch of grumps." No, we're not a bunch of grumps.
No.
And just look at this naughty and nice list, because clearly we want to give credit and praise where it's due. And so, I mean, you've got this long list of stores
We
that
just got a letter from the Gap the other day. I mean, that's
Yeah.
a large name brand across America. And the Gap wrote us a letter here at American Family Association. And they said, listen, we want you to know and your supporters to know how we're including Christmas all throughout our November, December, store promotions. And we said, good. We applauded them. And what we're saying here, folks, that's one part of keeping the word Christmas alive and we put this information out. So we are winning some of these. And I remember a few years ago, the Lowe's Corporation, they had changed the name of their tree from Christmas to holiday, and we met with them and talked to them, and they said, you know what, you're right, it's Christmas trees we're selling here, and they changed the name back. And so that happened with Sears and other name corporations all across the country that we and other groups have worked with. So, we're winning some of these, but it's still, Kirby, I want to ask you, why is it though that the secularist, what is their bottom line reason for objecting to? Well, they object to the Christian moral value system. They don't want it, quote, imposed on people. And why do they object to Christmas being celebrated distinctively by cities, towns, parades, communities? What's the real bottom line reason for that?
Well, one of the things, Tim, I've said before is that when you are with some of the progressives or civil libertarians, they tend to treat religious speech as something that's not protected by the First Amendment. Now, the First Amendment gives us the freedom of speech, freedom of assembly, freedom of the press, but then because it also says that we should not have an establishment of religion, they sometimes treat religious speech different than any other kind of speech. They treat religious symbols differently than any other kind of symbol. And I think that is the big reason for that. And the problem is, if you want to look beyond just this Christmas issue and to the broader issue of what's happening in the schools, you see that especially during Christmas time or at other times, there is the idea that we can't say anything religious in the public schools because that would be a violation of the so-called separation of church and state, which frankly is not in the Constitution, but that's the mindset that they have. And so young people grow up in the public school system today oftentimes sensing that religious speech is almost like pornography. Well, we know it's out there, but we can't say it in the schools. We can't say it in the classroom. We can't say it in the public square. And so that, I think, goes back to the quote that you had from Dan Scott on USA Today. We need to treat the public square as a public square, and the public square should not be sullied with pornography, shouldn't be sullied by religious ideas. We should keep our religious ideas to ourselves. And so I think that's part of the reason why this has always been perceived as something that should be treated differently. At the same time, when we allow transvestites to parade in the Macy's Day Parade, we can't have religious symbols because, after all, this is a public square, and that does not belong in that public square.
Yeah. Well, you're listening to the radio program Today's Issues on the American Family Radio Network. We're talking about the war on Christmas and the larger war on Christianity. Bill O'Reilly is, done some excellent work on this. He talked about this last night in his talking points. I don't have it here for us to play, but Ray, there are some people in the media paying attention to this, and he talked about, did Bill O'Reilly, he talked about, did either one of you see that?
I didn't.
Okay. He talked about how the secular progressives want to, they want to get rid of he called it the Judeo-Christian philosophy, the moral value system that comes from that. They need to get rid of that in order to promote, the secular humanist worldview. But that's been going on for several decades now, this ideological war over the soul of America between secular humanism and the Judeo-Christian worldview. Ray, when we say Judeo-Christian worldview, what do we mean exactly?
Well, we're talking about something that Kirby has talked about, and we've talked about here on AFR many, many times, that the men and women who founded this nation, though they were not all individual Christians or even what we would call evangelical Christians, by and large, the men and women who founded this nation and who wrote the founding documents of this nation came from a broadly biblical worldview. May not have embraced every aspect of the Christian faith, but their thinking about what America should be was informed by Old Testament truth and New Testament truth, been handed down and discussed for centuries. I don't even think, if it's properly qualified, I don't even think there's a way to debate that. It's just a simple fact. And Bill O'Reilly is right that there are people out there, these secular progressives, who want to scrub, if you will. They want to take a big brush and scrub out every vestige of Judeo-Christian heritage, so it's just not talked about anymore. And I think in that light, then the war on Christmas becomes very important. I think the war on Christmas is a skirmish, a yearly skirmish in a much bigger cultural, spiritual battle.
Kirby, in my article that I wrote on this, by the way, folks, which you can get at onenewsnow.com. You go to onenewsnow.com, there's a column I wrote, Tim Wildman, that is a response to those who say there is no war on Christmas.